This week on the Salesforce Admins Podcast, we're joined by Prag to talk all things AI readiness, from Dreamforce stages to real-world slide decks. So if you've ever wondered how to prep for a major presentation in a fast-moving AI world, or how tools like ChatGPT can play coach, creator, and confidence booster, I promise you, you're in for a treat. Now, Prag shares what it takes to go from idea to impactful delivery, plus the pivotal role that data plays in getting AI ready. Now, whether you're planning your next big talk or just curious how AI fits into your workflow, this episode has something for you. So with that, let's get Prag on the podcast. So Prag, welcome to the podcast.
Pleasure to be here, Mike, with you.
Let's get started for those people that didn't see your presentation at Dreamforce or haven't bumped into you in the community. Let's do a little bit. Tell me how you got started in the Salesforce community and what you presented at Dreamforce this year.
Wow. Okay, so you are backdating probably 15 years ago. That's when I started Salesforce. This is the Salesforce Classic version is when I started, and Salesforce evolved a lot, and I couldn't believe that it's already 15 years past. And I think this Dreamforce is my sixth or maybe seventh, but every
Wow.
Dreamforce for me is pretty amazing because of the energy and people around the globe who could able to come, join us, exchange ideas, mostly the problems and the pain they're going through. It's fantastic. So I always look for Dreamforce every single year. And the energy that I take away from Dreamforce is obviously the biggest driver for me. I know people sometimes complain that they become tired by end of day 4. I think, like me, on the opposite, I love to steal energy from others, so I take more energy if it is crazy like a week like Dreamforce, and that's fantastic feeling for me.
So you're taking other people's energy. Oh, no. I think this year you presented about getting AI ready. Can you talk to me? I mean, if you think about it, even in the short time that you've been, if you go back 6 or 7 Dreamforces ago, I promise you, we probably weren't talking AI, and now we are. How was that presentation, and what did you talk about?
So it's a very, very new topic to a lot of us. We are consuming AI in a lot of ways, and I'm pretty sure almost everyone who's listening to this podcast might have used some version of ChatGPT or Gemini at some point. But I started believing in my co-speaker, like we both started believing that we all are going to start using AI as part of our work. So the presentation we started in a way that in the next 5 to 10 years, what we predict is we're going to move from application layer to data centric layer. What it means is the AI or the agentic layer is going to sit on top of the data layer. And the phrase we actually mentioned at our session was like, we are moving away from clicks and moving towards chats. So that's going to be a very interesting starting point when it comes to AI, like how we're going to consume AI.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like having just come off of Florida Dreamin', even if people don't want to talk AI, they're still talking AI about just about everything. I even had an AI conversation with my Lyft driver, which I will tell you that was probably the first time I've ever had that. Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, I think none of us could able to avoid the topic.
So what did you see at Dreamforce this year that you're excited maybe to have come GA, or just the next advancements in what could come out for Salesforce in 2026?
Wow. There's a lot of things, but being very honest, I enjoyed this Dreamforce because the message was clear. If your AI needs to work, you need to have the right data. I think that message was a little bit under the hood for a while, but I think it's been clearly communicated this time that any kind of AI content that you consume during Dreamforce, it's not even a disclaimer, it's like very clear that hey, you need to have the right data to make sure that your AI works the way you want it to work. So first of all, kudos to the team who made this approach of making the message clear about the data layer, which is super important to make your AI works. But I was also super excited about the naming convention and the name change of all the products.
Oh,
It's not easy to move from Sales Cloud to Agentforce Sales,
uh huh.
right? That's a big difference. Like that means that there is an organization switch at the company level or at the product level. There's going to be a lot of agent force presence going to come along, that we're going to start using probably much faster and much sooner. Those are all kind of an indications that I got, but at the same time, at the keynote, I was super surprised to see Patrick doing a demo of Agent Code White. That's beyond what I would expect to see at the keynote floor.
Well, that's the whole reason we do keynotes is to wow and amaze you.
Yeah, it is definitely worth getting the goosebump moments there for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about. So you presented at Dreamforce, and you talked about getting AI ready. I think absent of talking about your presentation, one thing that's really relevant, having just come off of a community conference, and I know quickly the holidays will be here and gone, and it'll be January, February, and community conferences, user groups. Trailblazer DX will be coming back. I'd love to kind of hear your perspective on if you had some advice or things that you would love to share about how you got ready to present at Dreamforce that would be helpful for others.
I think what I have done in the past as a mistake was, oh, I want to make sure that my presentation is ready or the content is completely ready before I even submit my topics to talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest mistake that I have done in my own life. And the moment I started coming out of it, because the things are changing much faster, right? Like you cannot have something ready assuming that you can present that in 3 months or 4 months, then you're going to be like old dated content. So my suggestion would be start picking up the topics that you are excited to talk about. You have experience but also wants to gain more experience. So the curiosity is the fundamental success for you to have a successful content delivery, and for that
Mm-hmm.
pick a range of topics. So I'm always the security guy. I love talking about Salesforce security. It's
Mm-hmm.
just my thing. And now I love data. Well, like I started talking about data layers in different angles. And since I talk about security and data layer, I could able to start adopting AI topics, because when you talk about anything AI, you need to have two most important things, which is the data and how secured that AI have access to the data. So it's kind of putting those puzzles together is going to be phase two of how you can start thinking of presenting to either the community conferences or Twilight DX or even at Salesforce World Tours. So these are all the two fundamental things that I would be like picking before I start worrying about how to deliver that presentation.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, selfishly, the, the event organizer in me would love to have everybody have all their topics ironed out. But in reality, if you have a really good idea and a really thoughtful kind of abstract that explains it, it's kind of it makes me think of the Wayne Gretzky quote. You just have to skate to where the puck will be, which is, kind of, you have to know that you're going to create that presentation, even though it's not created right now. So I think that's really good advice, because sometimes people can think they have to sit down and have a fully vetted idea before they submit. And you don't. You just have to know that your idea will come together and be incredibly helpful for others.
Exactly. That's what again, I was one of those folks who made that mistake. But the moment I moved out of it, now I start my presentation with just a piece of paper or a Google Doc. I won't even go to Google Slide and have like 4 or 5 bullets about, okay, this is the 4 or 5 things I want to talk about. That what could be a potential title, and then I pick a title, and I usually submit at least 3 or 4 different kinds and versions of the content.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, don't give up if your topic didn't get selected. I have seen so many people, if they don't get selected to speak within the first 2 or 3 times, then they started believing that they are not the good presenters, or they don't know how to submit their topics, and they started giving up and not taking that approach of submitting the topics. I want to tell them that my topics has been rejected many times compared to the times of the topics that's been selected. So rejection is good at times, to make sure that it's not your turn yet. Doesn't mean that you never get your turn.
Yeah, I mean, having been on both sides of the fence on that, it's amazing. But like, if you think about it, relevant to other things like applying for a job, you know, you apply for jobs when you're searching for a job, and yes, there's jobs that you really want, but you also apply knowing, you're not just the only person applying. And to your point, it's not like you find one job and apply for it and then go, oh, well, I guess nobody ever will employ me again just because I got rejected from that one. It's a combination from an event standpoint. It's a combination of, what are the contents being submitted? What is the mix that the event is looking for? And what do I have to pick from? And sometimes you can be one of 1,000 submissions on a certain topic, and it's not that your content isn't good, it's you're one of 1,000, and there's maybe only 2 or 3 slots. And other times it can be, boy, I've had it where like in your case, I've needed 1 or 2 sessions on a certain topic, and thankfully there was 1 or 2 submissions on that. And so, I hate to say it's luck, but a lot of it is it's being open and flexible, and kind of making presentations that fit for what the organizer is looking for.
Exactly. So I think I think if people get clarity around that, um, I think they won't get demotivated for not getting selected.
No, I mean, it's also how many times don't you buy a lottery ticket and you don't win the lottery, right? Like if you bought a lottery ticket, you're like, well, I'm going to win. And then you don't win, and you're like, I'm never buying a lottery ticket again. Come on, I mean, I hate to say it's the same way, but like part of it is that's kind of just how, when you're in a big pool like that, it works. And sometimes, the reverse also holds true. You can submit something and it may be a great presentation. It just doesn't fit for what the company or the organization's looking for. I mean, I've gone through lots of call for presentations
Mhm.
for other events, and I'm like, this is a really good subject. And from my perspective, it's really good, But, from an organizer's perspective, it's good. It just doesn't fit what they're looking for. And so it's kind of it's like being cinnamon and somebody's trying to make a ravioli dish. And you're like, I'm not saying cinnamon's bad. Cinnamon's really good with sugar and frosting. You can make cinnamon rolls. It's just we're trying to make ravioli over here and cinnamon doesn't work out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. So yeah, these are all something that I suggest people to think before submitting their topics. But once it gets accepted, I think the best thing that you can do as a presenter is not to have a pre-written script. And
I would agree.
I have tried it multiple times, and almost every single time I failed, because if things are not going as per the plan, which 90% of the time it doesn't, then the moment you get into the panic mode, the script that you remembered magically disappeared, and you started blanking, you started blinking, you started filling with words that is, even though it's appropriate, but it doesn't match the exact tone that you're trying to say certain things. So what I started practicing for the last decade is, okay, I'm going to talk about the things that I do know, and I'm not going to stick with a specific script. And if I'm speaking with my co-speaker, and if my co-speaker took more time, then if I don't have a script for me, I could able to shorten the version of the content that I plan to deliver. So there are a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom that you get if you do not have a script that's pre-written and you want to stick with it, which is not easy for people who doesn't have English as their native language, because I'm coming from that background. But once you started practicing by delivering presentation without scripts, it's easy, it's comfortable, and you won't go into a panic mode anytime.
I couldn't agree more. As somebody that presents a lot and helps prepare presenters, there's definitely a point in time that a script is necessary to help you kind of vet out what the talking points are. But you're not in a play. You're not in a musical. You're not in a blockbuster movie where you have to say it word for word. And the thing that I always remind presenters when they get up on stage is, people will remember how they feel when they saw your presentation. People will remember the passion and the information better if you just speak to what is the point you're trying to make across. And a script is definitely a step in that.
Yeah.
You need something to kind of get your framework about it. But I think too often people do get hung up, even English speakers, where we're native language, they get hung up on, I have to say these exact words.
Exactly.
And you don't, you have to convey the meaning. Like, what is the point of this slide? Like, the script got you there, but in your own words, what is that slide? And that's often when the presentations, I can always tell when a presenter goes what we call off script. And generally the first time they rehearse and they're off script, they go long because the need to over explain is just, it's in the back of your head. And you're like, there's this little person inside that's like, you didn't say enough. You got to keep talking, say more words. They don't understand. And the irony is it's actually, it's actually fewer words, but with more intention. Because if you choose your words carefully, then you can really convey that meaning. So yeah, I mean, boy, and I've seen, you can also tell as an audience member when somebody is up there and they're going through the script in their head and they're looking up and then they forgot something and they don't know what to do. And that's where rehearsal comes in, just
Yep.
rehearsing for that. I always tell people you should rehearse in front of your family, your
Right.
friends, and periodically have them unplug the computer,
Yep.
or let something go wrong. Because if it's like why sports, and athletic people practice all the time, because the more you go through the motion of doing it, the more natural it is when something comes up. I've walked up on stage and had microphones fail. I've had screens go blank. And, there's a moment where you're like, oh, I've practiced this. I'm just going to keep going with the talk. I'm going to let the AV people do their thing. And if it comes back, great. And if it doesn't, then I just realized nobody can see what I saw, and I'm going to have to describe it in my head. But if you're on script, you're like, I don't know what to do because the script doesn't say that.
Yep, exactly. No, I 100% agree with that point, right? It's the pattern, and I think I've been told once that you should also explain in a way a 10-year-old should able to understand, so that you kind of avoid all the complex words and terminologies, um, to even explain a complex concept, but in a simple way.
Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, what? I'm kind of curious. This is sort of Salesforce related, sort of not. But what role did AI play in getting you presentation ready? Like, did you lean on it to help create some scripts for you? Did you lean on it to help create some visuals for you?
Oh, a combination of both, being very
Uh huh.
honest. I did use AI to generate specific graphics. I used to have to go rely on a graphic designer to do some graphics that gets aligned with Salesforce color factor, which changes every Dreamforce. So, like until last year, I was relying on another human who could able to do the magic, and then get it plugged into my presentation. But this time, it wasn't required actually. I could able to give the prompt, give the exact font style I want, give the exact pace of the image that I want, and it could able to get back to me with my expectation. Like even though it does not meet exactly how it used to be done in the previous times, but this is pretty amazing. I took advantage of building images for sure. The other thing I used it for is subtitles, right? For each and
Oh,
every a slide, I always try to avoid the tiny little subtitle under your title section on each and every slide, because I don't know what I could put there as a subtitle. And then I tried it with AI, and it could able to process my content and say, oh, this is something you can put under your title, which is like very interesting way of seeing it. And I started almost for all my slides, I used AI with my own content that I put it on that slide and asked it, hey, how can I frame it under subtitle? And it could able to give me some really interesting titles.
yeah. I gotta say, for probably this year for me, it's been so incredibly helpful to generate images that I needed to really drive home a point in a presentation
Mhm.
without worrying about copyright or having to figure out where I was going to get an image, because it could generate the image for me. Um, and I saw that across other presentations as well, because that was always something you run into, is the use of images that were under copyright.
Exactly. Oh, 100% I agree. I also remember I want to remove a certain content from the image and I asked AI to remove it. It did a decent job, but the job it does is all I needed. And that was an aha moment for me. Like, rather than just generating one, it also fixes the image in a much faster and a much efficient way.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
The other thing, I know you asked about the presentation and you mentioned
Uh huh.
about presenting it to your friends and families. But
Uh huh.
you won't believe that I presented to ChatGPT actually. I was,
Tell me more.
yeah. So it's the voice conversation, and I gave inputs that, hey, these are all the topics, these are all the content that I'm going to present on, and I want to do a trial run with you. And it was listening for the entire 20 minutes, and then the feedback it gave me was phenomenal. It was like, here you went faster, you have to slow down. Here your content is repeating, try to address. Here you are using lot of ums. Here you are using a big pass. Here you are running because you notice that you're running out of time. This is amazing. So the active feedback layer that I received from the conversation I had with AI tuned me, trained me in a much faster way compared to doing it with a human.
Yeah. I mean, that's really amazing because if you think about it, it's part of presenting in front of others is just to get used to being in front of people and talking. But rarely do you have the opportunity to present in front of a talented speaker coach, and you did that because ChatGPT has access to I don't even know how much information, and it can be that talented speaker coach that normally speakers pay thousands of dollars to interact with, and you got to do that. It's really an interesting use case. I really like that.
Oh yeah, it's and the feedback it gives, it was unbelievable. So I did at least a couple of times. The first time it was more soft acknowledgement. I got it, and then the second time, before I even say, I said like, "Hey, be rude. Try to be a coach. Don't give me polite responses. Like, be straight and
Uh-huh.
help me understand because you are preparing me and not judging me." And then you won't believe the acknowledgement and the response I received was more straight. There is no polished way of saying. It says like, Prag, this is where you made this mistake. Like, this is how you need to fix it. Like, it was more, I think I would say, commendable in a good way, which I really liked it.
That's interesting. That you had to kind of tell it to be a little more straight with you as opposed to probably understanding and empathetic.
Exactly. And it's not a human that. So for me, like, why would I expect it from a machine? Right, it's like,
Right.
okay, I'm here, I want to use you for this particular reason, this is the use case for me to use you as an application. I don't expect you to be nicer to me, I want you to be the reason for why I'm using you for.
Right. Yeah, I know. Maybe this is a positive thing, but often I run across a lot of prompts and different settings for different AI because they're built to be so helpful. And you often have to kind of like, no, dial it back. You can disagree with me. And I run into that, where anything that you use, the AI is almost like, oh, well, that's a really great idea, Mike, and let's do that. And would you like me to do this? And you're like, but it's not always a great idea. Like, you can tell me it's not a good idea, like you can go to an AI and be like, hey, I've got some cinnamon. Would this taste good dusted on ravioli? And I mean, I guess to our benefit, we've built AI systems that are like, absolutely, Mike, you're the Bobby Flay of the next world by putting cinema. And you're like, no, you can say it's going to be bad,
Yeah.
right? Like, but we almost have to tell it that. I guess it's somewhat commendable that we've done something that we have to say, no, you can tell me I can be wrong.
Exactly. And I am one of an example that I tried it, right? And the responses are different. So if I am having any serious thought process that I have, and if I want to get an AI, not opinion, but like how it would answer it or how it would handle the situation, before I ask them, I will say like, hey, make sure that you don't need to be kind or soft as part of your response and being very straight. Like, I want more factual information, and the response you get is definitely different.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah. That's wow. Wow. I love your tip on using AI and presenting to it and having it give you feedback, because I think that's incredibly useful. Well, this has been a fun conversation, Prag. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. It's always fun connecting with you. And I'm happy that we are talking about the future of how we're going to use tools that's going to help us becoming more and more efficient in what we are doing. That's my excitement.
I know. I often think back to what'll happen in 10 years if somebody's listening to this podcast and be like, oh, you remember that time that Prag and Mike were talking about presenting to AI, and like they thought that was such the future. And, now it's bloody blah. And I think of that because I go back and listen to old episodes. I mean, there's over 12 years of the podcast episodes available.
Wow.
And I go back and I remember talking about things like dynamic lightning components, like, a page rendering dynamically. Yes. And now we're just like, well, yeah, obviously you would do that. Like, obviously you would do that. But back then it was like, oh my goodness, you could do that now. And like, you can make this setting. And then, I remember putting together a demo and like, watch, we'll change this stage and then this field will appear. And like,
yeah,
everybody's quiet. And then, the page it refreshes and the record's there. And like, then the field shows up and you're like, I wonder if we're not going to sound like that in 10 years when we're talking about AI.
But I wish we be like that in 10 years, right? Like that's where the technology advancement is going to take us.
Yeah, hopefully we still have to keep telling it can disagree with us, because I kind of like that part.
I agree.
Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Mike. It's always a pleasure.
Big thanks to Prag for joining us and sharing so many insights, from crafting compelling content to using AI as a trusted prep partner. If you're thinking about submitting a talk or just want to sharpen your storytelling, this episode was packed with some wisdom. Now, do me a favor, share it with a fellow trailblazer who perhaps needs that nudge. Until next time, we'll see you in the cloud.